talking to the Cardinals media. That's courtesy of the Cardinals as the spotlight that comes with being number one, of course, playing against the Bears this weekend. And Williams, the overall first round pick, so a matchup there against two first round picks. Howard Balzer joins us now on the Right to It Against side. So, Howard, I know it's all about Kyler, but what about Chad Reland?
Yeah.
Excuse me. He gets the October Player of the Month, special teams. So he's not going anywhere, is he?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What are they going to do with this? And Jeff Rogers, the special teams coordinator, was asked Tuesday about the performance of Chad, and does this have them thinking about the future of Matt Prater? And of course, he's very close to Jeff Rogers, who's coached him here and coached him in Denver. And I'm sure Rogers didn't want to have to deal with that, certainly not now. And he said, well, we're only 1 week into the injured reserve situation. Well, it's actually 2 weeks. And the bottom line, though, is that Matt Prater next year will be 41, and his contract expires in March. And so, that'll be one of the decisions that the Cardinals have to make. And, one thing I found out that I'll be writing a little note on, it's not huge, but when they signed him to the active roster from the practice squad a few weeks ago, most of the time when that happens, guys, the team just signs the player to a contract for the rest of the season that they're in, and that's about it. Well, the Cardinals signed him to a contract for 2025. So he's under contract for next year. Now, it's only the minimum salary, which is a little over $1 million, but he's still under contract. And so I don't know if that says something or not, but whatever it says or doesn't say, they're probably going to have a decision if he continues to kick like this, and especially making that 57-yarder, which I think was a kind of an overlooked play in that game, that he made that kick when the Cardinals were down at the beginning of the third quarter. And the other part of it was that the Cardinals had 2nd and 30 before that kick, and then 3rd and 21, and they just, dinked and dunked and got 15 yards to get closer to have it even be makeable. So that turned out to be a key in the game. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see, like I said, what happens the rest of the season with him. And if he keeps kicking like this, it's hard to imagine that they won't move forward with him.
It seems as though Jonah Williams looks like he's going to play, but what is going on with Darius Robinson? Do they have to activate him on the roster? If he doesn't play, it's 52 versus 53. What is everything going around with Darius Robinson right now?
Well, they obviously feel he's not ready to get back on the field.
Okay.
Whether it's a combination of injury and the personal issue he went through with the death of his mom, but he hasn't been out there the last 2 days. He was activated from injured reserve, but he can just be part of the inactive list, just like everybody else who's on the 53 that won't be active for the game. So the question is when he'll play. It certainly appears from this. I mean, this is the 9th consecutive practice that he did not participate in after the first day he came back. So with a game this week and a game the following week and then the bye, I would think certainly the earliest we're going to see Darius Robinson is the week after and that could very well be when we see Jonah Williams also with this week's practice. We got next week's practice. Then of course they're on their bye, but that still counts against the 20-day window for practicing. They don't have to make a decision until after that week. But at some point he's going to be back, which I don't think they didn't know what was going to be the situation when he injured that knee in the first at the end of the first quarter of week 1.
And the whole Darius Robinson thing, calf, I think of a tear. But, I mean, I know guys that have tears. They're back within 4 to 6 weeks. This thing is lingering on. It seems like there must have been more injury there, or maybe he re-injured it. Have you able to figure out one way or the other on that?
Well, the one thing we were told after the first practice when he came back, and I was surprised, guys, that day he was listed as limited, because when we were out there in the 20 minutes that we're able to watch practice, and they're just going through individual drills, all he was doing was watching. He didn't do anything. He was just watching the drills. So I thought he'd be listed as did not practice. We were told then when he didn't practice, after he didn't practice the next day, that he experienced some discomfort in the calf situation. So who knows? It might have been a re-injury. You mentioned 4 to 6 weeks. I've spoken to medical doctors. including Dr. David Chow, who does a lot of work with Sirius and has his own website. He said a lot of times, there was definitely some kind of tear.
Yeah.
It wasn't a full tear because then he would have needed surgery. The question is how involved the tear was, and he said if it's just not needing surgery, it still can be 6 to 8 weeks.
3 minutes.
He's right about it. I think right around 8 or 9 weeks. Right now. So we don't know the specifics, and one of the reasons we're not told the specifics, so we're left to just speculate and guess.
Howard, with the Bears coming into town, Caleb Williams, he's not afraid to chuck the ball around. I have this game being a high-scoring game, like something like 31-28. Do you see it like that, or do you see something different?
You can certainly get a score like that. My sense is it'll be lower than that, mainly because the Bears are pretty good defensively. The Cardinals certainly have their ups and downs on defense, but they are able to come up with stops, certain times when they need them. And the Bears haven't been a team that scores a lot of points. Now, with this young secondary, looks like Sean Murphy-Bunting will be back, but those young guys back there, Max Melton and Star Thomas V and Garrett Williams, man, they did a pretty, overall, even though, they converted a lot of third down and shorts. I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle really didn't make plays to beat them. And so I think that secondary did pretty
2
well.
minutes.
So I think we'll probably have a score in the 20s, but I don't know that either of them, will reach 30, but you never know. A lot of times those things are driven by turnovers, and things like that. And the one thing the Cardinals have been pretty good at is limiting takeaways. I mean, we know that, Kyler Murray hasn't been sacked in the last three weeks. He's only been sacked 11 times all season, and they take care of the ball usually pretty well. So I think it'll probably be a game in the 20s, and it'll probably be another close one, just like they've had in the 3 of the last 4 games.
Howard, with the trade deadline on the 5th, some talk of potentially there's a push for the postseason now that this team's in first place. Do they have anything to trade to essentially try to get some pass rushers in here? I mean, what do they have when it comes to picks for next year, draft picks?
1 minute.
Well,
1 minute.
They've got picks, but in my mind, I mean, most of the time, teams, if you're looking for a difference maker as a pass rusher, teams usually don't trade those guys. And especially if you're looking for, a guy with some experience, the guys that are being shot perhaps are guys that are getting near 30 years old and have huge contracts. So my own personal opinion, I don't think that the Cardinals should all of a sudden, let's put all our chips in because we might be able to win the division, which could affect the way you're building the roster.
Yeah.
And a lot of times guys who are traded are guys that, are going to become free agents after the season. So does it really make sense for this team to do a rental? I think Monty Ossenfort, he's had a plan, and he's going by this plan. And I'm not saying he's not looking or seeing what's out there. Then I see people say, well, let's get some depth, in there at edge rusher. I said, okay, I can understand that. But someone's depth is someone's backup going to be any better than the guys the Cardinals have? If you think it is and you get him for a 6th-round pick, maybe you take the shot. But I don't think you should all of a sudden say, hey, we have a chance to win the division this year, and let's mortgage or affect the future by doing that. I just don't think that's the way Ossenfort is building this team. And so and they're going to get B.J. Ojolari back next year. They're going to have Darius Robinson, you hope, at some point, obviously, as a hybrid defensive lineman and pass rusher. And they've also been using Mac Wilson on the edge a little bit too. So granted, you can always improve. But the other thing, guys, is I wrote a story. It's on carswire.usa today, that you look around the league and there's a lot of teams that aren't getting a lot of sacks. And it doesn't necessarily correlate to wins and losses. I mean, the number 1 team in the league in sacks is the Giants with 35. At the bottom, tied with the Cardinals with 15 sacks, is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, geez.
So, I'm not saying. And then there's some teams. The Cardinals are in the bottom 10 with 15, but there's another 10 teams that are between 16 and 19 sacks. So it's become harder and harder to get sacks because of how quickly the quarterbacks get rid of the ball, and especially when you're playing. I mentioned Kyler earlier. a big reason for him not being sacked as much is because he's able to avoid them. And with the quarterbacks that are so mobile now, it's become harder and harder to get sacks. And so the Cardinals are not alone yet, improve their pass rush. There's a lot of teams that are looking to be able to do that.
Howard, great stuff as always. USA Today Cards Wire on Twitter, XHBalzer721. Have a good Halloween. What are you giving? What kind of candy you got tonight?
Well, we got the staples. We got some Reese's cups. We got some Twix. We got some Kit Kat. And I think that keeps all the kids happy.
Yeah, what you got? What's your address?
We're going to stop by.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate it.
By the way,
yeah.
By the way, real quick, I should mention that Buda Baker. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but Buda Baker showed up for his press availability today, wearing a mask, and sat down at the little table there and just sat there for about a minute. We're all wondering, is he going to talk with that? What's he planning on doing? Finally, he took the mask off, but it was pretty well done. I'm sure it'll be on all the news stations and all that, and I'm sure it's on social media now. But it was pretty cool, pretty funny what Buda did today.
You got to check that out. All right, Howard. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you next week. Howard Balzer.
All right, guys. Take care.
Joining us here. Speaking of Halloween, after you binge all that candy, what if I told you need to eat sauerkraut afterwards?
Oh.
Tell you about that next. Rocky Minucci, Jimmy B from Twin Peaks.
Valley
Clear.
Traffic from the Valley Toyota Dealers Traffic Center.
You have 2 accidents on the 51 northbound this afternoon. One is at Glendale, blocking up the right lane. Another one at the 51 and the Loop 101 ramp. Watch for a